We're going to give you guys just a minute. We got a couple people logging on, and then we'll get started. All right, so we've got everybody here at headquarters assembled, most folks, and those of you out there in cyberspace, so welcome. For Greg and I, this is a much anticipated moment. We've been working on some approval processing changes for the last 6 months, and first of all, I wanted to thank all of you that kind of helped test this. I know a number of you, I'm not going to embarrass anybody by name, but there have been a lot of good folks that have helped out in testing this, so thanks to you all. We had a really great meeting with Tom last week where he went through his last changes, and he gave us the go-ahead to roll this out, so Greg and I are psyched to get this going. So basically, I just want to give you a little bit of background on what this is going to do for everybody, and then we'll start looking at the tool. The most important piece of this for you all that you all are going to love is no more SharePoint interaction on the approval processing. So everything that you do on the approval processing is going to be done on the resource desk. Even the fact that the TM relocation checklist is still going to need to be completed, you're still going to be able to upload that to the resource desk, so there'll be no need to be dropping things into folder 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, you know, changing revisions, all that sort of stuff. That's all stopping right now. So there are some places where you may need to create an approval memo We're trying to get away from that terminology because we really want to move away from the approval memo idea, but I'm going to show you that in a few minutes. But most transactions that you do, i.e. the delegated transactions that your team lead and then Greg approve, will be done strictly through the resource desk. You'll not have to create any packages or anything like that anymore. So that's going to be a really great thing, we think, for you all. It's also going to be a way for you to get clarification on lots of things that you struggle at when you produce the RCC, making sure that the ownership things match the RAD requirements, making sure that all the developer fee numbers are correct. So lots of cross-checking is built into this new tool, and we really think it's going to keep you from having those typical, oh my gosh moments, I can't believe I forgot this was a tax credit transaction and I have to put the tax credit deadline date in, which I am guilty of on a regular basis, including yesterday. So the way the process will work is the transaction managers will go in, we'll have a new button for you, which I'm going to show you. You'll start the approval processing, and once you finish the questionnaire that we've developed, there'll be a button that you'll hit that then sends an email to your team lead. Your team lead will get that email and it'll say, Tanya has submitted Harmony Homes for your approval review. Alan will then log in, look at Harmony Homes. I'm going to show you the summary page that Alan and Greg get and Kara and all the team leads get, so they don't see exactly the same thing you see. They'll then be able to mark up your document in a tracked changes mode, send it back to you. There's a button for them to push. They'll send it back to you. You'll get a notification saying Harmony Homes has come back. Please go in and make any changes or comments. That happen until you and your team lead are happy with it. When you and your team lead are happy with it, the team lead will then forward it to Greg for his approval. Greg and the team lead can then go back and forth just like you did with your team lead. Once it's approved, Greg will hit a button. You as the TM will get a notification saying Harmony Homes has been approved. Please produce the RCC package. So you're going to get lots of notifications, lots of opportunities to go back and forth. And I'm going to show you that in a few minutes. But that's the most important thing for you all to think about, is that the process is now changing to where everything is going to be online. You go back and forth with your team lead. Your team lead then goes back and forth with Greg. If it needs to come back to you, it will. But everything's going to happen online, and the final version will be locked down. No need to produce any final documents, all that sort of thing, okay? So as we walk through this, you're going to see that. The other thing I want to mention is no matter how much testing we do with this, and you all will remember from the RCC when we rolled that out, I can't create all of the scenarios. We try, we've tested this a bunch, you're going to run into problems. When you do, shoot me a note, just like you normally do, and we'll get it fixed. There's going to be, there's a learning curve here, and there are going to be some issues. We're going to have forgotten that this box goes to this and that sort of stuff. So we're going to have to figure it all out. If you get really frustrated in the beginning, you can always go back to the approval memo that you've been using. Nothing has to be done on this at the moment. We want you to migrate over. Greg and Alan and Karen and I have talked about this, so it's not a mandatory move yet, but we'll get there soon. Okay, so if you get really frustrated or somebody's in a hurry, feel free to go back and use the approval memo. Okay, but we really, really, really want you to start moving forward with the approval processing. Okay, most of your portfolios are pretty light. New deals that are coming in, you should definitely start processing. If you've got one that you've just kind of started, I would recommend going in and using that. If you're well down the line with the approval memo, go ahead and finish it off using the approval memo. Okay, but really trying to get you to move forward with this. Okay.
And you said this is only for delegated?
No, this is for all transactions, okay? The delegated's all online. We'll talk about the committee ones in a minute, okay? But the delegated one's all online. The approvals all happen online. No need to produce any packages. But we'll talk about a committee in a minute, okay? Let me just check and make sure I don't have any questions on the web at the moment. So no, okay. So you're going to log into the resource desk just like you always do. You're going to go to your transactions, and we're all going to be patient like we all are because things move slowly sometimes. Transactions that have been assigned to you, okay? So Great Bend, Kansas housing transaction, okay? So I'm going to go to the same place that I've always gone I'm going to see a new button up here. So my approval processing button shows up. Beginning stage of this. So at the very top, you have all of the ownership information, the number of units, kind of the general, picture, if you will. This is all, as you know, because this goes into the RCC, this is all controlled by the PHA or someplace else on the resource desk. So if you log on and you see that the Housing Authority has not selected a choice yet, you might as well go ahead and have them do it, because they need to do that before the RCC can be generated, okay? If you see an error in here somewhere, you ought to go ahead and start getting that fixed. If there's something with the units that's wrong, start doing that research and figure it out, okay? But this is generally a place where, as you all know, you can't make any changes to these items, but certainly if it's wrong, you want to get it fixed, okay? So then scrolling down, we've created a whole series, I'm just going to scroll for a second, whole series of kind of the first piece that you're going to fill out, okay? So you're going to go through, and all of these questions basically additional information is added later on, okay? Perfect example of that is the ownership. So ownership is a big deal. We've had lots of back and forth about how is the PHA exhibiting ownership through the RAD process. Certainly if the PHA continues to own it, that's an easy one, but we've got lots of permutations where that's not the case, okay? So the first question is going to be, is the existing owner going to continue in place? So the answer to this is going to be yes or no. So let's just go ahead and change it to yes. So I've been messing around with this, but I'll show you some different permutations here. So I'm going to change this to yes. Then I'm going to get some additional questions over here, whether there's demo. I'm not going to walk through every question, but just to give you a sense of what's going on with this. HAP contract, delayed HAPs. We have all kinds of questions about that. How do I get that checkbox checked? All that sort of thing. Here's the ultimate source for you now. So is the HAP contract going to be effective at the time of closing? Yes or no? So I've got a delayed HAP. That's going to cause the checkbox to be checked. So I'm going to go ahead and check this as a yes. All right. Relocation questions, unit configuration questions, all of these sorts of things. Any place that you don't have a drop-down box, this question is being asked and the answer is given so that you, as a TM, are confirming that this information is accurate. So if this is a scattered site property and it says no, that needs to be fixed by you. That means that on the PHA page, there's a mistake, okay? So any place that you're seeing no chance for you to change it, but there's an answer, the goal here is for you to be not skipping over it because it's already answered, but affirming that the answer you've been given is correct, okay? Bundled rents, FMRs, these sorts of things, as everybody in this room knows, can cause big problems once the RCC is issued. If the rents haven't been calculated correctly, or there's some variation there, you need to know this. So we will make sure this is being handled at the financing plan review stage. Okay?
Hey, Robert,
sure.
On that question, it's just an example under operating pro forma where underwritten rents greater than 1/10 of the FMR, that's asking a particular question about a PBV conversion. And it's asking that question because we know it's a PBV.
That's correct. That's a very good point. So one of the things that you'll notice as you're looking through this, lots of places you get different questions asked depending on whether or not it's PBV or PBRA, okay? Whether or not it is above 110% of FMR. So if that answer were yes, there would be some additional questions that you would have to answer underneath it to make sure that, so if this was 110% of FMR, the question would be, is it an MTW agency, right? And they're bumping their rents up. Okay.
Just think about this a little bit. So, whatever they call this, intelligent software, how intelligent it is. But right. So it's trying to only ask you the questions that are pertinent. So if you think of where are you at this stage? At this stage, you've reviewed the financing plan and you're ready to prepare what we normally would otherwise call the approval memo, right? So this is the stage where you're ready to do that. And rather than preparing the 8-page approval memo that we have now, we've built this electronic version that's going to kick out sort of a summary sheet that will electronically get passed from you to the branch chief to me, except it won't look like the same approval memo that we do today. One reason being, we don't have to ask all these questions that don't apply to a transaction. If it's PBV, don't ask a PBRA question, and vice versa. So that's what it's trying to do, is sort of only lead you through to those places where we know you need to ask the question. And if the database already has it, don't ask you to repopulate it. So have it already sort of filled in. So that's the sort of the intent of what's going on.
Yeah, that's a great point. And to make sure that you're not constantly filling out NAs. How annoying is it to have to go through and check all the NAs? And that's where the mistakes happen, because you're used to checking NA, and all of a sudden it actually mattered in this transaction, and you forgot about it. Okay, great point. The next section below here, tax credit, closing deadlines, all this sort of thing. So this is a place where you're not going to be asked the tax credit deadline unless it's a tax credit transaction, right? So we'll just go ahead and populate this and just make something up, so just to put it in there. But closing priorities, this is a big deal for the closing team. They need to know, is this a status 1 or not? If it is a status 1, okay, then guess what? There's a reason popping up here. You need to fill that out, okay? That lets the closing team, Bev's team, know that this is a closing priority 1 and why it is, okay? If it's not a priority 1, then leave it blank, and you don't have to write a answer in there. Okay. Similarly with the tax credit deadline, not only do we want the date, but we'd like to see what's the story with that deadline. Is that a placed in service deadline? Is that a reprice my tax credits deadline? Is that my equity investor walks away deadline? What's the nature of the deadline? It's not good enough just to simply have a deadline. We need to know what the deadline is for that. Okay. Again, as Greg just alluded to, environmental questions. So this is a PBV. Consequently, I'm getting Part 58 questions. If this was a PBRA transaction, I would get the Part 50 questions.
Well, what if it's a Part 58 PBV where the responsible entity doesn't have capability and then you have to do the Part 50?
So number 3 says Part 50 done in lieu of a Part 58.
Okay. I can't do that.
So, sorry. So that's, let me zoom it in for you a little bit. A little better. Okay. The section below here is really for information purposes only. This is typically, and this shouldn't be showing up, this is a fix that I have in right now. We don't want it, the OAMPO questions don't need to go for PBV. But to the extent that you need to let somebody know that there are some potential lead-based paint issues or some asbestos issues or something else, we need to ask those questions. Okay? So then you're all familiar with the transaction description. This is where you want to type in what you normally type in for the transaction description. You all have been working with us for a long time, so you know, not going to pick on TJ, but TJ, you can't write a novel here, guys. So don't write everything that you normally would write in the old. Hopefully we're getting some more specificity in the questions and the responses below. So for example, if you want to make comments about the environmental, there's an environmental section below. Don't put it in your general transaction description. Transaction description should be primarily what's going on with this conversion, give us the background, but the specifics of the developer fee issues that you went through, any environmental things, put those in the sections where they belong below. Don't put that in the transaction description section. Okay? So once you've done all that, you're going to hit this button, and since I've been messing with this, it's going to say update approval information. If this was a brand new one, it would say submit information for further review. Okay? So when you hit that button, the system goes through, does its little magic, and it regenerates or generates all of the additional questions that need to be asked. So in this case, the first thing that you'll notice is this is not an approval committee transaction. It tells you that right here. Okay? If it was an approval committee transaction, the criteria would show up, the specific criteria. So for example, if this was a partial conversion, if this answer was transfers of assistance, specifically about those, otherwise you can move forward. I don't think a lot of people use this additional issues for discussion, but we left it just because to the extent that you've written a lot here and you didn't have enough space, you can write some more here.
A perfect example of where you'd use additional issues is deals where in Knoxville the PHA ended up starting demolition early.
Right.
So
right.
don't know. So it's a good thing to let the committee know as a sort of a highlight.
Right. Okay, so all of these new areas have now opened up for you. So basically we went with the typical order that you've been used to filling this stuff out at, so it's no particular order otherwise. But each of these sections have got further information being asked. So the ownership section. So here, there's no issue with the ownership. So I don't have any additional questions except for the ones that we need to ask anyway. We always ask about the ownership team having adequate experience. We always ask about identity of interest. Okay? So we're seeing here that the ownership entity is administering the PVV contracts, and so you need to write in there that the PHA recognizes that they're going to be two separate, there's going to be an ownership entity and a PVV administrator, okay? But the system knew that. So real quick, I'm going to show you what happens if I were to say no. Sorry, the existing ownership group is not the same. There's going to be a change. So when that happens, there are a series of other questions asked, creating a wholly owned subsidiary, yes or no. If I answer no to these first two questions, I'm now getting a flag because they have to fulfill the RAD requirement somehow. Turns out they're going to have a right of first refusal and a ground lease. That makes my flag go away, okay? They may be a member of the ownership group and have a ground lease. Also fine, okay? What this is trying to do is get to what criteria in the ownership world, from a RAD perspective, are we fulfilling the ownership requirements, okay? So this is going to be a place you're going to see lots of information back and forth, okay? You're noticing that I've written some information in here. I'm not going to mess with it right now, but you're noticing that it's all highlighted, so it's all in track changes for you right now, okay? When you first do this, you want to leave everything colored in track changes so that when it goes to your transaction division director, the team lead, they'll overwrite and go through that. It doesn't matter if you end up going through and accepting the changes by mistake. It doesn't matter, okay? It just takes that highlighting away and makes it more of what's going to be known as the permanent view. So when it goes to Greg for his review, you want to see a clean version. When Greg finally approves it, you want a clean version. We want the track changes accepted at that point in time, okay? Similarly, on my development budget, I've got all sorts of questions here, okay? I'm not going to go through all of them because you all are going to want to play with and need to play with how this works. But again, some of the things that drive me crazy that we added here, was there an RPCA required? Okay, if there wasn't, I need to explain it. If it was required, just tell me who did it, okay? Just give me the general information of what's going on here, okay? So the design is, as Greg mentioned, to not have you entering things multiple times and not being asked questions that are irrelevant to you when you're reviewing this, okay? Another piece that you're going to be really need to move this forward, the transaction team leads and the transaction division director view actually gives the calculation, so we'll see that when we click through. We didn't feel like you all needed that, so we didn't give that to you because you're looking at the sources and uses a lot more, but this is something that you all definitely want to see. If this was not a tax credit transaction, it would give you a different number, and I'm seeing that we need the non-deferred, so I'll get that added. One of the things that's also built in, if there were problems, it would tell you which ones they were, okay? Same with the PIH folks. This one does have problems. So they didn't complete the non-dwelling certification, okay? And they didn't complete the annual plan review. So both of those, looking at all those other pages for reviews or that sort of thing, you still can do that, but when you get to this process, you won't have to do that anymore, okay? Also, on the RCs over here, you've still got the place to put your other approvals. We've still got the additional provisions. These will then roll into the RCC. So you won't have to worry about duplicating that. This links to the RCC page, so you won't have to duplicate that effort. Okay? So we're all finished. We've done it all. I'm ready to send this along. So now I hit the button, and now you're waiting. Okay? So,
Robert,
yes, sorry.
So for the TM, if they want to see.
Yes, that's a good piece. You're going to want to cross-check this with the approval memo itself. You can click on this Generate PDF button, and that creates the approval memo that you all are used to seeing. So I'm not going to wait for it, but I'll let it create. But we'll look at it in a minute. But if you need to check it and you want to check it, that's the button you're going to want to hit. That's also the button you're going to. All right, so I've approved it. So Alan's going to log on. So when your team lead logs in and they go to their page, maybe you have, but they have a bunch of stuff that they have to do at the top, is to a summary page. So this here that you all had, this is a snapshot of all the things that Greg and I felt like were necessary for a team lead and then Greg as the division director to be able to approve this transaction. You'll notice that we gave them buttons across the top. You as a TM have easy access to that, jumping back into the property milestone page. They don't. So this is a quick way for them to jump to and look at the sources and uses, the pro forma, or if a reminder. This is not a committee deal. If it was a committee deal, it would be alerted here. So the team leads will know, I've got to get this on the agenda for next Thursday's approval committee, right? Then one of the things that we really like about this is drop in notes to you as a TM, go in here and overtype, make changes so that you can go back and forth without having to have all of the emails or the conversations that you've generally been having about this. The team lead can just go through, mark this up, and then I'm going to show you what happens next. But we go through this and they can make all the changes that they want to make in all the various places. Again, they're getting a snapshot. This is going to tell them what the problem is, if it exists, what's going on. There should be a note here, right? So if the PIH field office has not done their job, there should be a note here. If there's not, your team lead is going to send you a note saying back, what's going on with this? Have you talked to the reviewer? What's happening? Quick snapshot of how the ownership is being handled. The PHA is a member of the ownership group. Okay? If it was a ground lease, if that was the reason it was getting through, that would be noticed there. Okay? Again, quick snapshot, all of your comments page. So this is the non-deferred fee, how we got there. So the team leads and Greg don't have to go to sources and uses and pull up and do the calculations themselves. It's done right here for them. Okay? Existing debt, always a thorn in my side. Quickly there for you to see. Need to see notes about that.
Hey, Robert,
okay.
Just as an aside, so in this case, they're asking for more in non-deferred fee than we allow.
Yeah, that should be a flag, right? I wonder why that's wrong. Because that number is actually wrong because they're only asking for 6 something.
So
because they're deferring. Yeah. The calculation. Yeah, the other page it was right. The other page it was right. This page is wrong. Yep, I'll get that. Thank you. Environmental, right? This is a Part 58. It actually was we rechecked it, but it's always a Part 58, right? So the note ought to say this was a Part 50 done in lieu of a Part 58. Okay. All right, so if I've gone back and forth now, and I've looked at everything, I now want to return this. So I'm going to kick that back. What my team lead sent back to me.
Robert,
yes.
Will we receive a notice like a regular RAD desk notice that it came back?
That's correct.
Okay.
You'll get an email saying has been returned by so I see what the team lead can accept what they put in, delete this, finish up whatever I want. Save that, update my approval information. and you've responded to that page, and they're going to send it to the transaction division director. Email's been sent to Greg. Greg's going to log in. He's going to see on his first, make his changes back and forth. He finishes it, okay? He's going to do the same thing that they're and check and accept the changes of everything. He's then going to say, at the bottom of the page, that's the last piece of PM and the team lead saying, Great Bend's been approved, produce the RCC package. It's also going to create a permanent file of the approval memo. That email, you're going to pull up and produce that, print that out. You're also going to produce, I'm just going to cheat, go here, but you're also going to produce, so once you complete that TM relocation checklist, you need to go in here and upload it. Okay, so this is, again, this is delegated transactions. So I want to finish this up first. I'm going to come back to the approval committee ones. So you've got an email, Great Bend is approved. I'm putting the package together. I'm going to generate the generate the PDF, chaperones, sources and uses, pro forma, TM relocation checklist that I've saved here, right? That's my package.
With the RCC?
To create the RCC, right? The RCC package that you've got. Because you've got to put that package together. Because Pat doesn't have that anymore, right? She doesn't have any of this information. So you're generating the RCC package for her, okay? Right? So you're going to have to produce no more SharePoint for the approval memo stuff, right? You're still going to, we're still working through how we're going to handle SharePoint with the RCCs because she may want to put them there, but generally, I think she's going to be okay if the team leads send her the RCC package with the cover memo cut up, okay?
So confused.
All right, hold on.
So the RCC package that we're currently doing does not even have the source of use.
Sure it does. So the RCC package, so think about it right now. The RCC package, the way you're doing it now is you're producing the approval memo, which has the sources and uses and the chaperones and all that stuff. When you put that, it's part of the approval memo, because it's A, B, C, D, E, right?
I didn't know that.
Right.
Okay. So
So those are all together. Those go, Greg reviews them and approves them, right? Then that becomes part of the RCC package. That whole approval memo package is part of the RCC package.
right now.
And Tom still wants all that.
that's
So
the
right
difference.
now,
Okay.
it's living in SharePoint because you all uploaded it there before it got approved, and then she moved it to another folder. That's all stopping, right? So you're going to have to put together, not that it's that big of a lift because you're already doing it, but you're going to have to actually put that package together, the attachments to the RCC.
And what does that include again?
So it's the approval memo, right? Chaperones, pro forma, sources and uses, TM relocation checklist. Sorry.
Occasionally the map.
Yeah, well, so we're going to get to that because typically a site map is a approval committee usually. So I'm going to talk about those in a minute. If there's an FHA deal, you'd want the FHA firm in that package. Okay. All right.
And then where are you putting that package at?
Right, so Robert, so if, this is all right now until Tom gets comfortable approving the transactions, like I'll approve the transactions
Correct.
electronically. So far it's being from you to the branch chief to me, we're doing it all electronically. But then we'll give a package to Tom, and at some point in time, he'll feel comfortable and say, I don't want a hard copy, we'll just do this through the resource desk. So Robert, when they're ready to prepare that package for Tom to review, we've got staff here at headquarters, we have staff who are teleworking, we have staff in Chicago. So that package has to be given from Pat Beach to Tom. So will the TMs all just simply send an email to Pat with all those files attached, and then she'll just print out and give to him?
So what I was thinking was that the team leads would get the package, and that the team leads would send them to Pat. That was because that means that the team lead will have looked at it and reviewed it and sent it on to you for your review and then forwarding along. So that was my vision.
Okay.
So
Kara and Alan will talk more about
Yeah.
that today in our pipeline meeting, just to say how to button up that step. Okay.
But ultimately, when the TM goes in to complete the RCC, you're still doing the RCC cover, you're still producing the RCC, and what you're adding to complete the package will be the PDF of the approval memo and the rents and the sources and uses and the pro forma and all the things that are part of the approval package. Okay? Okay, so that's for delegated.
Robert, sorry,
Yep.
you never showed them how to generate the RCC itself. I know it's just a click of a button, but.
Sure. So once it's been approved, so this transaction has now been approved by Greg, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to go back to what I've done in the past. I'm going to generate the RCC. So I'm going to go through here and do the same thing, produce that, okay? But then I'm going to also need to include.
So
you're going to have to go through. You've
still got that rehab piece.
All that stuff is still there. That's not this phase. That's phase 2. That's not this
Can
phase.
you show sort of kind of what the RCC question thing will look like?
Still need to go through and confirm everything that you're doing right now. The only thing that's going to move forward, the only thing that you'll be moving over that you'll have to reconfirm is page. All of these same questions. Okay? Now, hopefully, a lot of this stuff is solved correct. This will be rolled out. Okay, so let's pretend like this was a committee deal. You're going to go through the same process that you went through, all the way to Greg, but the difference is going to be when Greg hits approve, you're going to get an email that says, ready to go to approval committee. Okay? So the system's going to know that there's threshold criteria, committee hasn't been held yet. Okay? So now you have to produce the committee package. Basically, the committee package is the approval package that we were just talking about, including with the RCC. So you're going to need to put that together, right, and send that forward to Pat.
Wait a minute. So if this is a committee deal.
Yep.
You're saying we have to now include the RCC?
No.
Okay.
So committee transaction, it's going to say it's committee. You go back and forth with your team lead. Your team lead goes back and forth with Greg. Everyone's now ready for this to go to committee. You're going to get an email that says, Tanya, Great Bend is ready to go to approval committee. Please produce the committee package.
So how does the system know that it's a committee deal? Are you going to answer some questions?
So the committee, so remember, I've got this threshold criteria stuff here. So there are all sorts of different ways that the system knows. Transfer
yeah, I know what they are, but
right.
what in the system what triggers that the system lets it know that it's a committee deal?
Most of them, I think.
Well, they're all.
Is this a transfer of assistance?
Right.
Then they'll know automatically. Oh, that means it's going to be a committee deal.
Right. Or if it's new construction. Well, so look. So right here. So new construction is a criteria, right? So new construction right now it says no. Right. So if this was a new construction deal and you were the TM, and this said no, you would know that the readiness transaction manager didn't click the new construction. If this was back here at the readiness, not rehab, but new construction. Okay? So if I do that, and I save it, now the system knows that this is a new construction. New construction is and threshold criteria. Because that's the only one. Right.
If you had other stuff like transfer of assistance, it would ask you a second question.
So where's transfer of assistance? I just don't know. So is the readiness TM checking some boxes within the resource desk?
Correct. But you saw me just do it.
Right.
Okay. Exactly. So that's what happens generally. Is most another one would be this partial conversion. That's a PIH thing. Again, but this is doing these, and you're wondering, wait a minute, I thought this was a threshold. I thought this was approval committee. Then you need to reach out to me immediately, and let's get together and figure it out. Okay. Okay. But in this particular case, so now it's this. So now I've got to. You'll then produce the committee package, send the committee package to Pat, so that she can send it to all the committee members.
And
And again, for that, we should, Kara and Al and Marlis talked this afternoon about, does the TM send it directly to Pat, does it send it to the team lead before it goes to Pat? So we just need to figure that out.
Right. So, okay. Tanya, making sense?
Once I play with it.
Yep, I think it will. I agree. So, okay. So then once,
sorry, just so if it's not obvious, so why this hokey workaround for committee? And the hokey workaround and why it isn't being done electronically is because right now the committee members don't have access to the resource desk. Right? So we can't just like electronically say to them, now go to the resource desk, and this week we have Branch Village on the docket. So we need to give them a document. So right now we're giving it to them manually, which is a temporary fix. Right. That hopefully at some point all committee members will have access to the resource desk, because there won't be a SharePoint site, right? They can't even go to a SharePoint site. So that's why we're sort of doing an end around for this committee deals.
Right. So the other piece, the last piece of this that you as a TM are going to have to do is then once the transaction goes to committee.
So we're still uploading in my SharePoint or committee?
No, you're not doing any uploading into SharePoint, period.
So
End of story. It's going to go to Pat, directly to Pat Beach. It's not going through SharePoint. We're not using SharePoint.
So we're going to email her the
Probably.
document?
Either you or your team lead, yes. So, again, this is now a committee deal. Committee, you as a TM are going to have to put this date in here. Somebody asked earlier, how does the system know it has to go to committee? Well, part of this whole thing is there's no date in here yet. So that email gets generated because this gets generated with Greg's approval, but it needs to go to committee, so there's no date here, so it knows it has to go there. So once it's approved to committee, you as the TM are going to have to go here and put that date in for the committee approval date. Okay?
Delegated or?
No, delegated doesn't have a committee date.
Well,
Delegated will, this date will be populated by Greg.
Approved at the top.
It will say approved. Up here. Right, it'll say approved, right? Okay. The other thing is, so Alan mentioned site maps. So for committee transactions, you know, oftentimes you have other things you have to upload. Those need to be uploaded here on the resource desk now. Site maps, FHA lender narrative if you've got one, FHA firm if you've got one. Pat's going to upload the committee minutes, but any other documents that you need to upload should be uploaded here. Okay, if you come across something, just let me know.
Section 18 approval.
Section 18 approval, that's perfect. Yeah, that would be one. We should add that. I'll add that. Okay. That's it. Tomorrow morning, when you log on to the resource desk, you're going to have this button. We would like it very much if you would start using it tomorrow morning. Questions, comments, concerns, thoughts? Again, I can't stress enough. You're going to run into problems. Okay? When you run into problems, just reach out to me, and we'll get to you immediately. Okay? We've done a bunch. A bunch of your colleagues have tested this. They've run through it. You know, but I know that we're going to miss some stuff. So let's just work together to get it finished up. But I think I think you're going to find it a lot easier because you're going to get asked the questions that you need to be asked instead of getting questions that aren't relevant. You get frustrated having to select NA all the time. There are a bunch of questions on the memo that you just don't need to be answering. Okay? Anybody in the room have anything before we wrap? Roger.
A quick question on the approval process. So goes to the team lead, review of changes. When it goes to Greg, if Greg has a question, does it go back to the team lead?
Yep. So the way we've designed it right now, the TM and the team lead work everything out. Then the team lead now owns it. The team lead sends it to Greg. Greg has comments. Since the team lead owns it at this point, Greg's comments go back to the team lead. Now, if the comments are so extensive and it's so complicated, that it has to go back to you, then at that point in time, the button can be pushed by your team lead and send it back to you all the way. I mean, that can happen. But the hope is that most of the things that Greg's finding are small enough to where the team lead can fix them themselves. But if not, they can kick it right back to you. But they have to make the determination whether it goes back to you or not. In your world, once it's gone to the team lead, until you get that email saying it's back to me, it's off your plate. Okay?
Can Greg send it, mechanically, can he send it back to both me and?
No.
Okay.
He only send it to you.
Okay.
You only go one step. Yeah.
So for, all of the old, documents that are currently on SharePoint, would they now be uploaded?
So that's a great question, Anna, and I should have said that. So Pat Beach is a trooper, and she has taken on the task of taking all of the documents that are in SharePoint and loading them up to the resource desk. So over time, you will see that they will start popping up. She and I have gone through it a couple. She's got a good system. She's going through it. There's a method to our madness, but it's not really relatable. So just know she's working through, and eventually all of these will be uploaded here for you to get to.
So soon, 2 to 3 months.
Soon. It's going to take some time. It is, as you all know, working in SharePoint is really slow and really challenging to work in. And so to have her go back and be taking things out and put it, it's a process. So it's going to happen though. So yes, Tanya.
So the RCC currently gets uploaded once we generate it to SharePoint.
We are not using SharePoint anymore.
And I know. So where's the RCC going once we generate it? Do we upload it to the resource desk?
No. So the RCC package is going to get produced, and either you or more likely your team lead is going to send it to Pat for her to move forward. And then she then uploads, right, which is what happens now.
Okay, and she's going to upload it to the resource desk.
Which is what happens now. Once it gets signed by Tom, she is the one that uploads it to the resource desk already. So we're trying to get you all out of that process as quickly as possible to make it easier for everybody.
Once it's signed by Tom, it doesn't get uploaded.
It does. No, both. It gets uploaded and goes on the yeah, both.
And then when we get it back from the PHA.
So then the PHA is responsible for uploading their signed version. So there's a Tom version, and then the PHA signs a version that goes on. So there are actually two versions of the RCC on the resource desk.
And so both delegated and loan committee, we upload the RCC approval memo package to this area right here, right? For both delegated and loan committee.
For delegated and loan committee, you need to upload any information here. You don't need to upload the approval memo, but you'll need to upload these things. This is for historic purposes only because the approval memo is living on the resource desk. So you'll always be able to, moving forward, you'll always be able to get it, right?
And what is that for? Upload our RAD approval memo?
So this is old ones, right? Because the system doesn't have anything for the old ones. So this will be, we're going to probably figure out a way to disable this for new deals. But you're not going to ever need to upload the approval memo to the resource desk. You just need to upload the TM relocation checklist and any other documents.
What has everything?
I don't know.
Delegated. You
Nope.
said approval memo, chat, sources and uses, pro forma, and maps that's required.
That's the RCC package. That's not getting uploaded to the resource desk. That's the RCC package.
Okay.
So maybe after our meeting this afternoon, we can figure out sort of like
Sure.
instructions on how packages are going to be.
Great idea. Questions, comments, thoughts? Teresa, you with me?
I'm getting there.
You're lucky
I'm grasping it.
because you're not ever going to have to use the old way. You can only use the new way.
I know, I can't relate.
Don't even think about the old way.
Well, I know this is a future problem, and I suspect that will be resolved in your July rollout.
Okay.
But the scope of work, which we've been having to go in and
Still have to hand enter
that's
it.
going to be resolved at that time, or we will still have to answer that.
Fingers crossed. So the problem, Willie, in all seriousness, the problem is the CNAE tool does not have an export page. And it's not, so there's no static way for us to pull that data in to the resource desk. So we're trying to figure out something. But right now, we may be typing in the scope of work for a long time. Sadly, I just did one that's painful. Carolyn, you had a question? Carolyn, you there? Carolyn? Do you have your phone on mute, Carolyn? Carolyn? All right. If you want to type in your question, Carolyn, I'm happy for you to type it in. All right, hold on. Let me see what I've got. Who's sending me questions? Oh, yeah, so Linda's reminding me, so Tanya reminded me that the criteria items have an asterisk on the resource desk. So you'll see the asterisk items that are criteria when you scroll through. So let's just do that real quick. Thank you, Linda. So here's your criteria. So demolitions criteria, new constructions criteria, relocation longer than a year criteria. Here we go. So if it's more than 12 months, that's going to generate approval threshold.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out how, I mean, it knew that it was transactional conversion. I just didn't know
How?
that it was,
Got it. Okay. All right, Carolyn's got a question. Is there a flow chart? No, there's not a flow chart.
We need to create.
But we're going to write up something. Kara just mentioned we're going to write something up, so we'll send it to you. All right. Other questions, thoughts in the room, on the phone?
So I really encourage Alan and Kara for your teams to, after a week or so, then you'll have a huddle. Just kind of what have you learned amongst yourselves and stuff, and just see how everything's going, and we'll do the same with Chicago.
Yeah, and definitely I think, much like when we talked about the CNAE tool rollout, after we've done a few of these, maybe in 6 weeks, we'll have another meeting just like this and share thoughts and things. But also know that, if you're having struggles, let me know immediately because we want to get those fixed. I mean, this is one of our top priority items right now. Get you fixed and get it rolling. So.
right now this is our choice.
Your choice, yeah.
To use it.
Yeah, so for example.
Right now it's your choice, yeah. I mean, but I think that, pretty soon it's going to be required, right? But I think pretty soon you're going to want it to be required because do you really want to keep using SharePoint? Do you really want to keep typing that thing out every time? I mean, this is trust me, it's way easier.
So my suggestion is if you're in the middle of a transaction and already started on the memo and stuff, finish it off if you want. If you have a brand new deal that's coming up Thursday, like, I'm still not ready to sort of start. It's kind of a little too early. I want to graduate, but you got a deal that you're ready to do that's later in this month. I'd start using this.
So we recorded this session, so I'm going to put it on the resource desk for TMs to see. So if if you're interested in watching it again, feel free. Thank you all for your time. Thanks for everybody on the phone.
Thank you.
And
Thanks, everybody.
it should be fun.